Hello, everybody. I hope you are having a fantastic week. This is Pharmaceutical Soccer bringing you all of the unfortunate Nashville SC coverage that we have to bring. I'm here with Clay Trainum. Valera Shabila will be joining here shortly. I think we need to start this week off with Clay. Please tell me you had a good weekend. Like, I feel like we need
I
Nashville's in a
mean,
weird sports time right now. I know Everton is a little bit better on your end than currently what I'm going through from a sports perspective. But like, how was it a good weekend at least?
I was ready to roll in and act like this was a very positive show because I had a 9 point week and everything was great and everything was awesome and then you kind of gave away the game. So yeah, it was a good weekend. I spent part of it back home in Evansville, and then I got to watch Everton beat Liverpool in front of fans, which had not happened for 14 years. So unfortunately, Valaire's not on here to bask in that because it could help Arsenal down the line. But the last time that Everton had beat Liverpool, Mikel Arteta scored in that game. So it'd been a while. And yeah, the weekend was great. My we celebrated my nephew's birthday and went bowling and went to the Nashville SC game and played D&D. I can't really complain. I had a very full, enjoyable weekend, and
That's very
Everton
good.
won three games in a week. So
I do feel like I if there's one person on this show that's probably mainly like the most emotionally affected by sports and like their day-to-day lives, I would say it's Valaire. So I'm very curious on how like Valaire's weekend ended up turning with like how sports went because obviously the Predators is one thing as well because that was
yeah,
ridiculous.
I was I'm not a big hockey guy. I only have so much bandwidth, and I'll watch cricket, but fitting hockey in is a little tough. But the I did see the clip that Valaire posted on his own Instagram of him wearing the Preds bachelorette party hat, and it was like it should go on things that preceded. Well, I saw the Preds score at 3-1 while I was playing. We were playing a little bit of Ticket to Ride last night with
Very nice.
with my wife, and 3-1. I was like, oh, cool, the Preds are going to tie up the series. And then 2 hours later, I looked at my phone. It's like, ooh. And then I looked at how the Preds lost, and I was like, oh, that one hurts. Been there.
Yes, very much. That's funny. I played Ticket to Ride over the weekend too. Saturday, I went to like a game bar in DC. I played Ticket to Ride and then I played Splendor. Man, I love Splendor. Splendor is great. It's from the same people as Ticket to Ride, same kind of game. Fantastic. Enjoyed that. And then I took a nice little drive on Sunday to Nashville. So I'm currently in Nashville in Studio 421 at the current moment. Um, no, I mean, I
Are
didn't.
you the missing ingredient? Is this what's going to get Nashville back on track?
I will say, if Nashville does win on Saturday, I will be at the game on Saturday. If Nashville does win, I do expect a contract, at least something. Like I'll stay. Like if I'm the good luck, I mean, look, I moved away. Nashville's now in 14th place. I'm not gonna say it's me specifically. I can't do that, but I'm just gonna say if we win over the weekend, that's a completely different story. It's part of the reason why I left on Sunday and not Saturday too. I didn't know if I could do two games here. And like that's not good. Like this is my home. I love being able to go to national games. I love seeing my friends, all that type of stuff. But I didn't know if I could do it two matches in a row of dealing with all the shenanigans. And obviously, I'm not necessarily mad about not being at the Saturday's match because it did get a little I don't know. I heard, Teal getting booed as he came on the pitch, Gary Smith chants going on, like it's stuff like that where it's just some of it's a little bit out of control.
I I have feelings about that. Um, we're not really planning on focusing a lot on the Gary Smith topic because there's not really a ton to focus on. There's no new news there. He's still the manager at NSC. We don't see that changing this week. So
No.
it's kind of not worth dwelling on too much. But what I will say is I find it understandable. And I think it's a very valid thing to want to move on from Gary Smith and maybe other people. I think that that's a valid feeling as a whole. But when you're at the match and things are getting started, that's where it kind of feels uncomfortable because at the end of the day, I mean, this is where the difference is, right? Like we're a supporters podcast, like all of us have been in the supporter section. And like if you're booing your own player going onto the field, that's like not being supported. You know, I mean, like
Yeah, it's not. It's just
that's like
not.
productive. Like, because if you want your team to do well, in theory, you would want the player that just came on to do well. And I understand that that might track with, being upset that that player is in that position because we haven't bolstered the position or whatever. And I understand the underlying things there. I get it. I totally do. But at the same time, like it seems very counterproductive to what everyone wants, which is the team to win.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen people say they want the team to lose so that they'll fire people, and I just don't understand that.
I will never understand that kind of logic. Like, it's
And
just, I understand the logic of like, I was shocked with the Teal sub on too, but I wasn't to the point of like, I'm going to boo what is happening on the pitch with him being subbed on.
and
I think there's a complete,
honestly, if that's the problem, like I'm this is my personal opinion. Other people are perfectly happy. I'm fine with other people disagreeing here. But it just seems strange. Like when the game starts, like your focus should be, on what you can do, from the stands to help your team win, because that's why you're there. That's why you're paying tickets. That's why you follow this. You know what I mean? Like that's the whole point. So when they did the lineups and people booed Gary Smith when they announced his name, I was like, I don't really care for that, but I get it. But when they booed when Teal came on, I'm like, what's the point here? Like, is he going to become better because you booed him? Like, I don't understand what the end game is. And that's the part that's kind of made me weird about this whole reaction the last few days.
Well, and it's interesting because if he
Hey,
had
where'd
scored,
you come from?
oh my God.
just came out of nowhere. It's interesting because if he scored, they'll be the same people cheering, So, and I remind you that currently Teal Bunbury leads Nashville in MLS goals for 2024. So I just want,
Does
I
he
want the
really?
world. Yeah, he has two. Uh, so does Sam Surridge. That's it, and I think Hany has two now too. So there you go. No, no, I agree with everything that's being said. I'm not here to say how to be a fan or anything like that, but I will say that this is the first time while in the not supporters box, the press box. This was the first time we heard a decisive boo for a player, a Nashville SC player from the press box, and it was kind of yeah, it was a little awkward. Not gonna lie, it didn't feel good. I don't think it made the player Nashville SC or anybody feel better about any of what was going on, which was already pretty terrible. As I'm assuming you guys covered already.
Yeah, it's just I I just find it very funny that some of the people, not all of them, because not all of them really care for the song, that sit there at the end and say, "We'll never give up on you," are booing their own player in like the 80th minute. So, in a game that's even, in a game that's, in theory winnable, I don't necessarily know that I felt that way, but still winnable. So it is what it is, and I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way. But I'm kind of curious for you guys feel like what we talked about expectations from here on out. Like, I still think like playoffs are perfectly in play. I don't think that has changed necessarily because it's MLS and you can continue to win. But I definitely thought that this past week was the closest to like a must win game that you could get in MLS, and it was a draw. So
Yeah, I think we all said that last week on this show, and I mean, so many people agreed with that. I think I've seen some like, oh, the season is a wash, like let's just call it a day type of thing, type of posts, I guess, on socials. And it's 25% of the regular season is past. That's it. There's still so much to play for. Over 60% of teams make the playoffs in MLS. Like this isn't a situation where Sporting Kansas City didn't win a single game in their first 10 games last season and ended up making the playoffs and won in the play-in round to then win again in the first round of the actual playoffs. So Like, let's not act like this is not redeemable or like there's no way around it. Does it look does it seem possible? I don't know, but I just numbers wise, being 25% into the season means very little in MLS terms, unless you're fighting for supporter shield, which those teams seem to be already figured out at this point.
As Valer wasn't here for this, but I'm sure it's no surprise. I did talk about Everton's 9 point week a few minutes ago. And I think that that's kind of instructive on thinking about it because so much can change in a week, so much can change in a game or two. And, things aren't well now, but you get a few results in a row, and suddenly you go from this team is like following a 6-0 loss to Chelsea, Everton, they're relegated. They've got no savior. And a week later, they're safe comfortably. And if you look at the standings right now, Nashville's on 8 points. If they were to have like a 9 point week, and everything else fell their way, they'd be in third place. Like that's how close the table is. You're 3 wins away from a home field.
Yeah, I think
Right.
I
And we
understand.
see that play out over the season. That's early season stuff, but we also see that's how close the gap can be. Now you have to start winning games. There's been 9 games and they haven't won any in recent weeks. But like things can change very quickly in the league.
Yeah, like I understand the gut reaction too. Get like we're one loss away from having as many losses as we did in the 2021 season. Like there's like stuff like that where it's hard to look at. There's stuff that guess what? We're not playing defense or scoring goals. Like there's things that we have seen, on the especially during that San Jose game where, we'll talk more about it where I'm just like where is something going to come from? I don't know specifically where anything is going to come from. I don't know if you need the coach to do something completely different when it comes to lineup. I don't know if you need the players to just have one of those Arsenal go to Dubai type of, things that we've talked about. Like I hadn't seen it, unfortunately. And like I think that's like the gut reaction's okay. Obviously, when we did the poll this week, our Monday poll, it was talking about where Nashville would fit on the table specifically by the end of the season. Would they make the playoffs or not? Uh, with 72%, I'm refreshing now, 72% say we're going to be out of the playoffs. 18% say we'll be in the play-in round, and then 8% in the actual playoffs itself. So, like, you see just based on gut reaction where everybody's feeling. You're able to turn a couple. We've seen this team go on multiple runs before. Heck, we saw the League's Cup where it is possible. I think the
Well,
question is where that is going to come from.
I will say we mentioned the League's Cup a lot because it is like a good thing. We also saw Nashville lose a couple games in the League's Cup or lose a game where they gave up 4 goals in the League's Cup. But before the League's Cup, they did have a run of 10 unbeaten in this
Yes.
sort of area of the season last year. And so that is also something to think about. I don't know that it's necessarily going to happen. I would have assumed that Nashville would try and get back on track against San Jose. That didn't happen, but this, including San Jose, this upcoming chunk of games is significantly different than the previous chunk of games before the San Jose match. This is proven time. I mean, the first chance at proven time didn't work, but they've got a few more chances lined up to get things back on track.
Something that we are back on track for, though, is people leaving us 5-star reviews on our Apple Podcasts. So, Clay, I do believe you do have this picked up. If you did not know already, we will read your 5-star reviews on whatever podcast platform you leave them on. So, thank you so much for all the 5-star reviews. Didn't get any last week, but we do have some this week. Clay.
Yeah, and keep in mind, we'll read any 5-star review you give us. So if you want to give us a 5-star review where you just insult Steven for like 500 words, we're going to read it. In this
Welcome to the
case,
podcast. This is what we do, anyways.
we have a very nice review left by Wes Bowling. Ever heard of him?
Yo,
Oh,
shout out Wes.
oh, Wes, let's go.
Who is obviously the co-host of Club and Country with Tim Sullivan, and he left us this one. It says knowledge and passion. Nashville soccer originals who know the club deeply and are intertwined with local supporter culture and bring a dynamic approach to analyzing the club. Good humans who know NSC as well as anyone, but don't hold it over listeners' heads. A delightful pill to swallow. So,
Delightful
Wow.
pill to swallow.
so
I
very
like
nice review
that.
from Wes. And real effort to give us a palate cleanser. Now leave us an insult-filled review, and we will read it as long as it's 5 stars.
Yeah, thank you, Wes. Those very nice words, man.
Wes, that was very sweet. We
He's
love you.
Yeah, wishing you the best of luck with everything. And I texted him the other week because he's finally back in town. So yeah, come on, you
Hey,
Gunners.
Wes,
I'll
I'm
see you at the
also in
pub.
town, so let's make sure we get together at some point. That'd be great.
Also, can I tell you about what I did this weekend?
Yeah, be
We
quick.
talked about what you did this weekend
We did
already.
talk about what you
Oh,
did.
you
Uh,
did? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So you got it covered.
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
we
So
talked about your hat and we talked about what you did on the
things that
match.
Okay.
preceded unfortunate events is
Yeah, it
the
was
incident with the
honestly
hat.
devastating. I mean, Steven heard me like after the match. It was very not the match, the game. Yeah, the Preds, Tennessee sports are well, Middle Tennessee sports are just doomed, man. I don't care. But anyway, that's
This
my
is
weekend. Thank you.
this is marginally related to your weekend, Valaire, but it's such a crazy stat that it's worth noting. So obviously David Ray is probably going to win the Golden Glove for most clean sheets.
Yes,
He's got
yes,
14. Jordan
yeah,
Pickford has 12. He's second. The
yeah.
crazy thing is, how many saves do you
I
think are?
know. No, I saw it this morning. So Jordan Pickford has 112. Did I get the number right?
Yeah,
And David Raya has 41. Like, like, do you realize how many more shots Everton has conceded than Arsenal in any given match? Anyway, I if I was here at the beginning of the first segment, I would have talked about this. So here I am talking about at the end of it.
Fantastic. We would have been overtime anyways. But even though we are overtime, that is perfectly fine. We are going to come back and talk about the match in specifics. I'm sure we have a lot more to talk about. We also have to talk about some Nashville SC injuries, which is always fun to talk about. We'll do that next, right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. And we are back right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer at Pharma Soccer on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also check us out on Patreon. It really does help us continue doing this show. We love our Patreon members so much. You'll also get a shout out on the show if you subscribe to our Patreon. We'll always really appreciate it. So please, 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 please help us keep the lights on. Yeah, that'd be great. We really like doing the show. Also, if you want any more information on us, who we are, you can check out our website at pharmasoccer.com. So please make sure you check that
We need
out.
to update that.
We do.
By we, I mean Clay.
It still
There you
says
go.
on the Roadies president, which I am not. So we should
Yeah.
probably update that.
yeah. President Emeritus. Boom. Problem solved.
God, that sounds really good, actually. Like president. Dang, I didn't realize that was what that was called. But look, I'm fine with delaying the conversation and not talking about this match as long as possible because I don't even know specifically where to start when it comes to this Nashville match. Nashville, of course, drawing at home to last place San Jose. Hany Mukhtar scoring an absolute banger of a goal to start us off, but then Nashville could not hold the lead again with some dude from Memphis scoring. I already forgot his name. I just know he's from Memphis. So you guys know his name?
Skahan,
Whatever.
Scan.
Scan. That's what it is.
Yeah.
He's from
I mean,
he's from
it
Memphis.
has like 3 letters too many, but it's Scan.
But yeah, him scoring the equalizing goal and us not being able to do anything offensively at the end to keep that a 1-1 draw. Still at 14th place at 8 points now. The only team below us is New England, which, I mean, it could be worse. We could be New England.
Or
Right?
San Jose.
Or San Jose.
Or Seattle or Dallas. Those are the other 3 teams that are lower than Nashville SC in the West. Anybody can look at the table. But as we've said, all those teams are like a win or two away from being solidified in the playoff position.
I would say if I were to rank like where I'm happy about like what teams are what though, like Seattle's going to be fine at some point. I don't think Dallas is as good as, like you said, Valaire. I think Dallas is probably not as good, but I still would probably rather be Dallas than Nashville SC right now.
No.
No.
I honestly, I mean, look, I don't know. Maybe you like to have big names signings that kind of never really panned off. Maybe that's you. Maybe you want to have Sebastian Lletget and Paul Arriola be the saviors of their club. Sure. Jesus Ferreira is probably leaving in the summer for way less money than they expected. Their defense is simply not as good as Nashville SC's defense. I know Nashville SC's defense has been bad, but we're not here to compare teams. I don't know. And then the other thing I'll say is that like as an organization, Dallas is a historic one that's done a lot in this league. They have a really good academy, so maybe if that's what you're talking about, yeah, I would rather have the Dallas Academy than the Nashville SC Academy. I think they have more solutions from there. Otherwise, squad for squad, manager for manager, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I took that a little bit of a different direction than I
Yeah.
imagined. So I apologize for that. Clay.
Well, I would just say like I mean we have some silver linings at the bottom of this, but like Hany Mukhtar scored a goal from open play, the type of goal that you hope gets things going. Walker Zimmerman did come back into the team. There are some real worries about Nashville SC. Like, don't get me wrong, and we're going to get into that, but there are some things that maybe there's a bit of we can see a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel from these last few weeks. I don't know that that's going to happen. I'll be very honest. I don't know that that's going to happen, but there are at least some things that you can point to look towards as maybe a sign of things improving down the line. Whereas I don't I don't necessarily know that you can say that about all the other teams that are mired in it. The one thing I will say, and this kind of gets back into what we're actually going to talk about, which is like Nashville SC not playing well, is like the attacking numbers. Another week where Nashville put up like decent attacking numbers and really didn't have anything to show for it. I mean, what, 17, 18 shots. A good chunk of those were on target. Uh, a good number of chances. They were trying to shoot from outside the box, which they don't always do, and that worked out really well because obviously Hany Mukhtar scored. And there were some things like Nashville had a good chunk of possession and was still able to get some chances together. But at the end of the day, the only goal that Nashville scored, similar to a week ago when there was an own goal, was a goal that you don't expect and that you didn't fully like have a process towards creating. It was like Hany Mukhtar had a block shot and then took another one and it went in. And that's the part that's really that's the worrying sign for me, is that you're not seeing these like really big chances build up. You're seeing chances in the way that crossing teams put up chances, which is half chance, half chance, half chance. They look
Well,
better than they are because you come close on crosses. And when Sam Surridge missed his shot, when he finally got a cross into the box in a good area to head home, he put it right at the keeper. And there were no more ideas after that. It was nothing but crosses from mostly the left side, but left and right side. And I think that they completed it's like less than 10% of those were
well,
actually completed crosses. So it was a rough watch. We didn't have very many ideas. We didn't see very many ideas coming to fruition for NSC.
and I think that's the tough part about even doing this podcast and even talking about this team is that it just seems like the same old story. Like I thought the first half, like even with, like Hany Mukhtar's goal being the only goal that was scored, I still think in that first half, the team looked very bright. Alex Maweel had a very good chance, that bottom inside that could have been a goal any other day of the week if it wasn't for a pretty good save. We were definitely pressing pretty heavily. It didn't look like San Jose had a ton of opportunities, but in the second half, that definitely all changed again. And it was really weird to see.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta give credit to San Jose as well because they played much better in the second half. But I think there are a lot of worrying signs for this Nashville attack, and it's exactly what Clay was saying. I mean, our friend Jeff at Nashville SC Stats, he quote tweeted one of my tweets, which was about Nashville SC shooting more, and by far the most shots. That's what Nashville SC Stats said. By far the most shots was 17 for the whole match, and 5 on target, tied for most. This is all for this year. So there were shots, there were opportunities. And yeah, they were missed. And I think when you look at somebody like Sam Surridge, who does everything right, who does so much for Nashville SC in build-up play, who does so much shifting right, left, allowing Mukhtar to go in the middle. Look, if I'm a striker at that sort of stature, there's a, you know when Barcelona bought Ibrahimovic and they put him on the left so Messi can play in the middle, Ibrahimovic threw a fit and literally left the club the following year. Sam Surridge is a very generous striker. He has been going right, going left, doing all the stuff that we praised Teal Bunbury for example, all that dirty work. And man, if he can just finish as well, he would be worth every penny of that DP contract. And I don't want the he's a striker, he's always going to be judged on goals. And I just don't want Sam Surridge to be looked at the same way as like someone like Ake Loba, because Ake Loba never did this stuff. Ake Loba didn't score either, but he didn't do this stuff either.
Well, and this was the thing because I've seen a lot of talk about Surridge, and fair enough. He missed his one opportunity against San Jose. His XG total with no goals in the previous game was not great either. There are some worrying signs there, but generally speaking, one of the big, stars next to his name was his finishing ability that he'd shown, at times in the championship and the Premier League, even, but mostly the championship, which is a comparable league to MLS. And so he's getting into good spots, he's getting into good areas. You have to think that law of averages are going to answer out for because he's never been a poor finisher. You know what I mean? So like if he's getting into those spots, eventually they're going to come through. And to be fair, he's got assist goals like they've happened, this season. And so I'm not really worried about him because, like you said, Akeloba, like not even on the same planet in terms of like what he does. I will say it'd be helpful if he started soon, get a little pressure off him, get a little pressure off Honey. But I'm really not all that worried about him. But I am worried if the only way that he's going to get chances is through crosses because I don't think that's not gonna play to him very well. What I will say, and this was lost in the kind of the post game uh, commiserations with NSC, is that he had a chance. It ended up being offside, so it wouldn't have mattered. But he had a chance in the first half that just barely missed, which would have been if it goes in, it's a great goal. Like it just goes just beyond the post. It's the type of shot that most people on the roster wouldn't even take. I'm not sure if you guys remember it,
Yeah,
but it was
I
like cutting
remember.
across, goes across the goal, is going for the far post. It's basically only Honey is trying stuff, or Alex Moyle, but let's be honest. But like it's those type of goals that you want to see your striker scoring. He didn't score it, so I'm like, giving him praise for something he didn't score and it didn't matter at all. But at the same time, like that's not the sign of some that a striker who's lacking confidence isn't trying a shot like that, is what I'm getting at generally. Like I think he feels like he's getting into the good spots. He's doing it, and I think we'll see that pay off as we get into the summer months, personally. But I've said that before,
I mean,
so
yeah, I was gonna say,
like we'll see.
of course you feel that. That's of course your thought.
I think that on the basis of like the strikers that Nashville has had, Sam Surge is the most likely to be successful of everyone that's come through. I don't think I feel pretty
I don't
strong.
think you're crazy saying that either. I would agree
Yeah,
with that too. I just think
this
like
isn't Jandre Cadiz like
I
not doing
mean,
anything for 2 months.
in all honesty, he's like 7 or 8 goals away from being the
Right.
highest scoring
And
striker
the
for Nashville
the
SC. Like, you
but
know,
my point was like it took him so much longer to become useful. But even in that being useful, he still wasn't getting games over Daniel Rios at times.
right?
Like I don't think this is the same situation.
No, no,
for new players though, I definitely agree with you. I think some of the new players are definitely having, with injuries as well. Tyler Boyd, finally coming in. That's great to see. But I think a lot of the mistakes, especially against San Jose, were from the veteran players of the team. And like I feel like I don't know. Maybe I'm seeing things completely different. I'm seeing a little bit more discourse on the field than so. Like I feel like after every single like ball or thing happening, Anibal Godoy was very much trying to get at people a decent amount of time. Um, I was talking about this last night as well. Actually, I want to go at this. I want to stick with veteran players first. That goal that did happen from San Jose's perspective, that wasn't necessarily bad defending. It was just a mistake. It was just a bad mistake by how our defense was set up, which is, again, this is the stuff that our defense has always been sound, but this is one thing that just we were not sound about specifically. Like Valaire, what was that like for you? What watching from the top? Like I don't know, like the best way to
In
talk
real
about it.
time, it looked offside by a mile to me, right? Because of the way things unfolded. And then you see the replay and you're like, wow, he's onside by a mile. Like it's honestly so I don't want to just keep harping on the same point over and over again of individual mistakes, but individual mistakes happen when players switch off, when players are uncomfortable, and when players don't have confidence. And you can say all three of those things about Nashville pretty, pretty, pretty emphatically, especially when it comes to someone playing out of position like Dan Lovitz. Because, I think I let me say this. A 30-something-year-old MLS veteran who's played a lot of minutes for Nashville SC in Dan Lovitz knows exactly what he needs to do in that situation and knows he has the knowledge and the skill to prevent the mistake he did. He has that, but he didn't. He didn't because he's playing out of position. He's uncomfortable in that position. The players next to him are uncomfortable in their positions and the way they're playing. And it has created this disorganization of Nashville at the back that is liable to give up a goal, at least a goal every match. Do you know this was the 10th match in a row that Nashville didn't get a clean sheet in? That's insane for a team that all they did was get clean sheets. That was literally their motto. That was their whole like structure was about getting clean sheets and being defensively good. Going from that to give up a goal in 10 matches straight is honestly just one of the biggest like meltdowns. And yes, injuries play a big part of that. But in the past, when injuries happened, players came in and played really well and became part of the fold instead of kind of affecting the fold in the negative.
So this is the thing that really gets at me. It'd be one thing if it's Coleman comes in cold, is put into a starting role against a good and makes the mistake. But in these games, that's not the type of player that's making the mistakes. In these games, it's often been the vets. And while I understand that Dan Lovitz is playing out of position, and that is worthy of mentioning, Dan Lovitz is also playing in a position that he's probably played in the last 2 years 20 times. And he's a guy who's played basically in every role along the back line except being in the middle of a back five. He's been one of the corner center backs. He's been a left back. He's been a right back. He's a veteran. He can't be making that. It's not rocket science. An offside trap isn't rocket science. Like he just got caught out, and that's the worrying side to me. And like I said, we're not really focusing a whole lot on the coaching thing because there's no news to report. There's no sign that Gary's getting fired this week. There's no sign that he's locked in for the rest of the season this week. There's nothing to report. But when you're talking about changing a manager, and as an Everton fan, I've seen that a lot. One of the signs that you look for is players not being locked in, players making mistakes that they don't normally make. Maybe the message has gotten stale, something like that. And that Dan Lovitz mistake, and Lovitz is a guy who's prone to the occasional mistake. He's not exactly the sterling, guy on the back line, but that's one of the signs that you see whenever things start to grow a little stale. Now, that being said, like I don't expect him to make that mistake every week. And I do have some things that I'm excited about on the back line. Mostly Walker's going to come back. Shaq Moore hopefully coming back soon. Like there's some things to look forward to, but that's one of those that like you put in the back of your head and be like, well, maybe there's something here.
He also picked up a very unnecessary yellow card like 4 minutes in. I don't want this to sound like just on all on Lovitz because I do think it's more of a group thing, but somebody who is okay, Lovitz does this every now and again. We've seen it in the past, but it doesn't happen that often, and it doesn't happen as emphatically, I guess. So picking up a yellow card at the 4th minute just really shakes things up, and then giving up that goal, which just
Well, and you're talking about, I mean, Valeria, you bring it up as a kind of a whole team thing, and that actually kind of not necessarily about Gary Smith, but I do think it's something to question. When you have seen this team, come into bad spots, we have seen changes being made. Now, we've seen this three back, whatever, with Dan Lovitz a part of it. Obviously, there's been some, enforcement issues just based on who Nashville has available. But how come no adjustments are being made at the current moment? Like, obviously, the current situation and the current solution is not working. How come adjustments are not being made?
there are. I mean, the three at the back was the adjustment. They didn't start the season with three at the back. They started with four at the back, and then they switched to three at the back. And then let's not forget that Sean Davis and Jack Mayer were both dropped from the starting lineup and then brought back into the starting lineup. Those are all adjustments. Um, Coleman started matches. Bauer was dropped from starting matches all of a sudden this match. There are adjustments. Panico came into the side. Panico left the side. There are a lot of adjustments being made on pretty much week to week basis. And I think that's part of the issue, honestly. I think at one point, you're just going to have to stick to your guns, put out the 4-4-2 that everybody hates, and just play some soccer. And I think you just might have to go back to that.
I will say this, and this is one of those things that uh, kind of grates on me a little bit, and this is in the realm of the adjustments, right? Is that I see a lot of people tweet about Gary Ball, like what is Gary Ball? And it's usually meant as a derogatory term for like only playing defense, only worried about defense. I think the most clear adjustment that you can see is that there's been a concerted effort to move the ball forward and try and get things going forward because defensively Nashville hasn't been good enough. And I think you can see that in the Miami game. I think you can see that in the game this past week. I think you can even in some ways see that in the Philadelphia game and the Columbus games. You've seen Nashville put together chances in ways that they weren't, in ways that people don't think that this team does under Gary Smith. They've tried to change things around. It hasn't worked. And now it's trying to figure out what will work without also while also getting the defense back that Nashville has had its signature basically for its entire existence before this season.
And we have another week that we're going to figure that out at home. And we're going to talk about that as well as some Nashville SC injury news right here next on Pharmaceutical Soccer. And we are back right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer at Pharma Soccer, of course, on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And as I stated in the second segment, we also have the Patreon. So please make sure to check that out. Please help support the show. That would be amazing. Of course, you can also check us out on our website at pharmasoccer.com. So please make sure you do that. Get into some Nashville SC injury news really quick. A very familiar or unfamiliar face is currently back on the injury report with a long-term injury. Well, I think the first one, unfortunately, we do have to talk about is Lucas McNaughton. Unfortunately, his injury looks a lot more long-term, which sucks a lot for Nashville, especially when it comes to center back depth. He had that starting spot kind of locked in, was probably the best defender of the season so far. But after getting a small cameo against, I don't even know who we played before we played San Jose, Miami, he is now injured again. Randall Leal with a long-term injury. I don't know. I mean, like I feel for the guy, but then I go back. I really do go back to the Costa Rica manager who said he doesn't do the things in the intermediate for him specifically to help out with these injuries. Like, what do you do with Randall Leal right now? He's currently the highest paid player that is not a DP on the squad, and he doesn't play.
I think it's if it's not over, it's the beginning of the end for Randall Leal. Um, I think internally from Nashville SC, they've come out earlier in the season and said, "Look, this next year and a half is this is where Randall Leal has to prove himself. His contract is up next at the end of next year. Highly doubt he'll be getting he has an option. I don't think Nashville SC will pick up that option. I think for him, honestly, we always think about it from an NSC perspective before anything else, but I think I'm thinking about it from Randall's perspective. It's devastating. It's gotta be devastating. I don't know where he would get the willpower to get up again and do the rehab again. If it was me, I'm telling you, man, I would have given up. Straight up, I would have given up on my career, taken my last paycheck, walked away, done something else with my life. Because I don't have it in me. I know myself. I don't have it in me to come back that many times. I'm not gonna bet against him to come back. Whether or not that comeback will be in Nashville is doubtful at this time. I cannot I can't get myself to like believe that he will come back and play meaningful minutes for Nashville this season or next season.
Yeah, it's hard to put a lot of stock in the Randall Leal comeback story at this point. I think of him more than I think of NSC because he's a guy who's committed himself pretty heavily to Nashville. He moved, not only did he move here, he moved his whole family here. He's definitely, maybe not publicly, but he's involved in the Latin community in the city as well. He's people see him out and about. He's always been in a very like supportive I mean, he loves the Preds. Like
Yeah. Do you
he's
guys remember? Do you guys remember? I told you I went to the elementary school
yeah,
games. So I went this week as well. And guess who was there this weekend supporting his little brother, Randall Leal? He was there
yeah,
in that same league, watching his little brother play for one of the school teams in Nashville. So like you don't see that from everybody. You really don't. And by the way, his brother was playing for the school team that's not like pay to play. It's just the regular school team that MNPS makes. So it's like he's ingrained within this community, maybe just
yeah,
not as publicly as Taylor Washington or others, but he's definitely been involved.
yeah. And it actually like so you just feel for him and hope he can figure it out. I think that there's still a chance that things can work out, but obviously any chance of things working out in Nashville will be at a significantly lower rate than his current wages.
Yeah.
I will say it actually hurts Nashville on two fronts. When they signed Randall Leal, they weren't expecting him to still be with Nashville SC at this point. They signed him with the hopes of him moving on and providing basically transfer funds for getting other players in. That was very much the plan when they signed him. He was supposed to be the next up and coming Costa Rican star. So just removing Nashville from it, there's a knock on effect to the Costa Rican national team. There's a knock on effect to MLS and stature and moving players on. Like he was signed as a designated player that Nashville was going to have for 2 or 3 years, and he was going to move on. And now here we are, you know, several years later, and he doesn't play because he's always hurt, and that has major knock-on effects up and down the roster, not the least of which is that it makes it harder to get more people on the roster because he takes up a huge chunk of the available funds for the salary cap. So yeah, it's hard not to think about just him generally because it's just such a sad story, especially how many good moments that he gave Nashville in those first 2 or 3 years. But uh, it's probably winding down the clock on his time in Nashville, and that's just really sad.
Yeah, some stuff over the weekend. Did you guys know that Lionel Messi is really good at soccer? I personally had
Never
no
heard of him.
I had no idea.
Who? Never heard of him.
No, never heard of him, but he's really good. So that was, cool to watch from them. LAFC getting another win, coming back to it. The team that we're talking about not being better about, FC Dallas, did actually win over the weekend, so that's kind of fun for them. But we have Montreal over on Saturday again at home. Montreal as a team, they ended up drawing against Columbus 0-0, which is, always a feat. Always wondered how Montreal was going to do this year for sure. I mean, we've had some tough matches specifically against Montreal, even here in Nashville, that we've had to watch and deal with. So it'll be interesting to see this one this week.
Montreal comes in with some of the weirdest results of the season. They beat Miami. They lost to Chicago. They lost 5-0 to Seattle. They beat Cincinnati. And then they're coming in with draws against Orlando City, who's whatever, and Columbus. So it's the classic MLS team, Montreal, right? Like, figure that out. Figure all those scores out. That's just the last month. Figure all those scores out and tell me what you think.
I mean, look,
So they started.
if they're bad against bad opponents, I think we're in a pretty good spot. What do you guys think?
I don't know. I mean, they lost to Seattle 5-0. So yeah, maybe they can lose to Nashville 5-0. Things will change. But the thing about Montreal, so they got a new manager who was the Columbus Crew 2 manager who won MLS Next Pro with the Columbus Crew 2. That's a lot of words, man. They got to figure out a better way of saying that. So Laurent Courtois is the manager there, and he's similar to Nance in a lot of ways, but maybe a little less, a little more pragmatic. Let's just say that way. He's a lot more realistic when it comes to this beautiful soccer he plays. They've had a lot of good results and a lot of good matches, and I think they have the talent in that squad. And I think the manager is kind of building something there. You can see it in the belief their players have. They are dealing with a couple of big injuries. So Mason Toy has had to come in and play for them pretty much the last couple of games because both Joseph Martinez, who we're all familiar with, of course, is injured. And then their kind of star striker signing, they brought him from the Argentinian league. I think it cost about $2 or $3 million. Um, Kakaro. There you go. That's his name, Kakaro. He's an Uruguayan striker. I'm doing my best. He's been actually really good this season. I think he has 3 goals or so in just a few games. So he was good as well. He's hurt, and so is Joseph Martinez. So that's 2 strikers out. Again, Mason Toy has had to play that position as well as Eli Lassiter a little bit, who they got from Miami in a weird trade. Anyway, all that aside, they have some really good players out there. I think they are better than 10th, which is where they're sitting right now. They started off this year all away from home for the first 8 matches or so. They had some stuff going on in their stadium. So all in all, I think it's going to be a really good match. Their draw against Columbus is, I don't know. Columbus has the biggest match in the last, one of the biggest matches in their history coming up this Wednesday. So they rotated pretty heavily. I don't know if you can take much of it, but also they beat Miami away. So I don't know. Like Clay said, I don't know if we can take much from their results. What we can say is that they play very well. They're a very disciplined team, and they have that they have really good tools and a good manager to kind of so far to get the result that are needed.
Well, let's go with the predictions while we're at it. Valera, just keep it going.
I don't think Nashville SC can beat this Montreal team. So I am gonna go with a 1-1 draw again. And it brings me no joy to say that to everybody listening, but that's literally my objective opinion on this. I don't think either team has enough to win this one. 1-1 goal from Sam Surridge. Maybe he finally gets his goal. And yeah, it's gonna be not a great match again, and everybody's gonna still be mad. So and then follow me at Valer Shabila and get mad there at Valer Shabila on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Yeah, I have all sorts of updates. I do a lot of coverage throughout the week. So if you don't follow me already, please do. And if you do follow me, share my stuff because I appreciate it.
And I think Nashville's I'm sticking with it until it happens. 2-0 win Nashville. Uh Goals from Sam Surridge and Walker Zimmerman, both assisted by Hany Mukhtar. You can check me out, Clay Lasso, on Twitter and Instagram. You can also check out the Nashville Soccer Archive at nashvillesoccerarchive.com and at Vanderbilt University Library. And in addition to all that, you should check out Kicking at 615. I hear they do good stuff over there. And Valer Shabilla on YouTube. He
Yes.
does good stuff over there as well.
Yes.
Nothing I'm doing for predictions is working, so I'm just going to shut up and do it. 5-0 Nashville win, of course, at
Finally.
home. I'm getting a contract after this week, okay? This is my time. Nashville's going to win 5-0. Everybody's going to be like, oh my God, Steven was the problem. He's not here. And then Nashville's going to have a contract for me ready to go. So
Who's getting a hat trick in the 5-0
Yeah.
game?
Taylor Washington.
2 goals from Hany, 2 goals from
Ah.
Tyler Boyd, and
One goal from
goal.
Joe Willis.
No, I was not saying Joe Willis. I was going to say Jack Mayer. Thank you very much.
Okay.
But
Okay.
Jack Mayer will be it. Again, thank you all so much for listening to the show. We appreciate it. Again, I'm excited to be in Nashville for Saturday. So please come on up and say hi to me, Clay, or Valer. I'm sure I'll see them the entire time.
Somebody said hi to me the other day that listens to the show. I was in line to get my designated driver free soda at Geodis Park. If you don't know about that, check it out. It's great. And he was wearing a Nashville Metros hat. I didn't get his name, but a guy in a Nashville Metros hat came over to say hi. So shout out to you, whoever you are.
Shout out to you, Nashville Metros guy. Thank you guys so much again for listening to the show. We will be back next week to either be even more sad or happier. We'll find out. Thank you all so much.